Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. Alrighty, thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. So, happy Tuesday to everybody out there. I hope you are having a great week, or I hope you had a great weekend. I know I did absolutely nothing besides watch football. There was nothing to do, really. Pretty much the last of my friends went back home for Thanksgiving, so I am just chilling here by myself in just me with some family in Texas, not doing a dang thing. Everything led up for the Thanksgiving break, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do for that day. So yeah, I did nothing besides just watch football and go to the gym and just worry about who was going where in the NBA, because this week in the MLB, or this weekend I should say, was the driest week of baseball in a long time. Just looking up things to talk about for today's episode was incredibly hard. Like, when I just went on Google, and because I didn't hear anything that was outstanding that I could do any research on, I just went on Google and was like, what's some of the news that I could talk about? And the second highest trending story was Vanessa Hudgens holding hands with Cole Tucker. And I was sitting here thinking, like, is this really newsworthy? Like, granted, Vanessa Hudgens is a dime piece, but is that really newsworthy? I mean, good for Cole Tucker. Shout out him, if that's, what's going on. But, it's not this, this show isn't like TMZ, we're not here like, giving you the deets on like who's dating who and stuff like that. But I thought it was TMZ, but it wasn't. It was like it was like the New York Post or something. And that just didn't make any sense to me. But so this episode is going to be a little bit weird, and mainly because I'm going to try and keep it as entertaining as possible. And by keeping it as entertaining as possible, one little bit of news is that Steve Cohen has officially become my favorite owner in all of baseball. A joke came out this weekend on where a guy he just offered the idea, I should say, of Steve Cohen buying out the rest of Bobby Bonilla's contract. And if anybody knows Bobby Bonilla, he has the day, July 1st of every year. He gets paid $1.2 million from 2011 through 2035. He hasn't played since 2001. He has not played a single baseball game since 2001. Everybody here, if you follow baseball at all, you know the story. He hasn't played for the Mets since 1999, when he was 36 years old. So he played for the Mets like 3 different times. So he played in 1992. He was on the team in 1993 and 94 and half of 95. So he played 5 years with them, and then he went to Baltimore, to the Marlins, to the Dodgers, then back 1 year with the Mets, and then to Atlanta. So he has had a very odd career, and I just wanted to talk about Bobby Bonilla mainly because I don't think anybody's talked about his career at all. Now, why Steve Cohen became my favorite was because he doubled down and was like, hey, this is weird, but what we're going to do is we're going to make this even weirder. So the guy said, hey, can we buy out his contract? And he said, no, we are going to go the exact opposite route of that, and we are going to celebrate Bobby Bonilla by having a parade. So Steve Cohen was taking fan suggestions and says that each year for the next 15 years on July 1st, he wants he sitting there and is thinking about having this anniversary party every year for arguably the worst deal in the history of baseball besides Chris Davis. And just to think that, he's like, no, why would we cut back and, we're going to zig when everyone else zags. So he's saying that there could be a parade. The first 10,000 fans could get Bobby Bonilla fake mustaches, and they would have this ultimate celebration of Bobby Bonilla, which is the funniest thing. Just reading that in general, not even knowing Bobby Bonilla's career, is hilarious. But then I went, I've never actually understood what Bobby Bonilla did in baseball at all. So I went in and I went on his Baseball Reference and I looked up just what did he do? So Bobby Bonilla played 16 years in the bigs. He played for 8 different teams. He played for Pittsburgh, 6 years for the Pirates, 5 years for the Mets, 2 years on Baltimore, 2 years on the Marlins, and then 1 year on the Braves, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the Chicago White Sox. He was a 6-time All-Star, a 3-time Silver Slugger, and he actually was on the 1997 Florida Marlins championship team that took down the Cleveland Indians. As the one strike away, the Cleveland Indians curse. Everybody in baseball kind of knows that. But just looking at his career, he was very average. He was a very average guy. His career high in homers, 34, pretty good year with the Mets in 1993, was an All-Star that year. His career high in RBIs came a few years prior to that. He had a 32 and 120 RBI season with Pittsburgh in 1990. He was an All-Star, Silver Slugger, and finished second in the MVP votes. So, hey, good year for Bobby Bonilla. It seemed like the best of his career came in his first stint with the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is even funnier because the Pirates didn't even pay him that much. I just don't get it. Let's see, what was his career high in batting average? So his batting average career high looks like it's 329 in 1995, where he spent half the season with the Mets before getting traded to the Baltimore Orioles. That was his career high, 329. His OPS plus, he actually had a pretty decent OPS plus throughout the years. His career high in OPS plus was 151 in 1995. That was also the year where he was just an All-Star, was traded from the Mets to the Orioles. Looking at his overall career numbers, let's see, he's had a total of 2,010 hits, 287 homers, 1,173 RBIs. He had a career batting average of 279. He had a 358 career on base percentage, a 472 slugging percentage, an 829 OPS, and a career 124 OPS plus. So Bobby Bonilla, not that bad of a player. Really not that bad, but the fact, I just can't believe that he's still getting paid by the Mets in that deferred deal. And he only played one season. In that one season, in 1999, he had, in 60 games, he had 4 homers, 18 RBIs, and a 160 batting average. Then with the Atlanta Braves, his next year, He went up to a 255 batting average with 5 homers, 28 RBIs, but he played 114 games. So in almost double the games, he only had 1 more homer and 10 more RBIs. Then he finished his career out in 2001. He had 93 games played, 5 homers, 21 RBIs, and had a 213 batting average. So when Bobby Bonilla, he was second in the MVP voting. I think, if I remember correctly, that 1990 Pittsburgh Pirates team, that was the one who went to the NLCS against the Atlanta Braves. Postseason loss in the NLCS to the Cincinnati Reds. Okay, so his best year, he was on the team. Let's see who else was on the team that year. So he played right, obviously. Okay, so Andy Van Slyke was in center field. You had Barry Bonds, had 33 homers, 114 RBIs, and a 301 batting average. Let's see what Bonds did that year. Barry, Lamar, Bonds. Oh, so Barry won MVP. Wow, what a stacked team. That team was juiced. So you had Barry winning the National League MVP, and then you had Bobby Bonilla, who was second in the MVP voting that year. Good gracious. Let's see, Jeff King. This team was actually pretty good, not going to lie. These names, not many people would recognize, so I'm not even going to name them off because most people wouldn't know. Moises Alou was on this team at 23 years old. Let's see, what was his stats? So he got to play in 2 games, and he had a 200 batting average, 1 for 5 on the year. Not horrible, I guess. Kind of weird. So let's see. So Bobby Bonilla, MVP, second. The next year he finished 3rd place in the MVP voting. He had, 44 doubles, 18 homers, 100 RBIs, a 302 batting average, an OPS plus of 149. Let's see if Barry won the MVP that year too. Let's see. Okay, so Bobby Bonilla, bam. Barry Bonds, 25 homers, 116 RBIs. What did he get that year? So that was 91. Oh, he was second in the MVP voting. Okay, so who won it that year? Terry Pendleton of the Atlanta Braves. That's who won it. Okay, so we had Pendleton had a 6.1 WAR, 22 homers, 86 RBIs, a 319 batting average. Nothing too crazy. Wow. This is actually more interesting than I thought it was. But this is also the kind of news that we're getting because everything was so boring. So here we go. Let's see. The Mets are still paying him through 2035. We still have 15 years. If you think about 15 years of a Bobby Bonilla trade, but also let's talk about it like this. What's going on in the middle of summer? Like, imagine you have a July 1st Bobby Bonilla parade, and then in New York you have the hot dog eating contest and all the 4th of July specials. Like, that just seems so much more fun. You come out, Mets fans from all over the world can come out a little bit earlier and, get to celebrate Bobby Bonilla Day. I'm all for random celebrations of things that don't matter because, we celebrate the hot dog eating contest and half those people, are just random plumbers. Like, Big Cat from Barstool did it. I mean, what does it even matter? I watched the hot dog eating contest when I was at work at Sport Radar one year, and one of the guys on there, he was wearing a luchador mask, and he said that he hunts paranormal figures in his downtime. So it's like, we have hundreds of people that go out to celebrate that on Coney Island every year. Why not throw a parade for Bobby Bonilla, especially if the Mets are good? Like, it's funny if the Mets are good because it's like, hey, we get to celebrate Bobby Bonilla because, we're out of the dog days. And then if the Mets are trash, it's probably more funny because it's like, hey, let's remember the good days of when we had Bobby Bonilla. So let's go for the good days. Let's go see Bobby Bonilla's best year with the Mets. That's still Barry Bonds. I don't know why I'm still there. Okay, back. All right, here we go. So his best year with the Mets, let's see, 34 homers and was an all-star. 1993, his batting average, we'll go with a 30. We'll go with the age 30, 1993 was an all-star. So let's check out the season with the Mets in 93. You had Jeff Kent. I didn't even know Jeff Kent played for this team. So you have Jeff Kent, Eddie Murray. That's really the only name, and Bobby Bonilla are the only names that are actually noteworthy. You had Jeremy Burnitz off the bench. Anybody who remembers him, shout out them, because I always liked Jeremy Burnitz just based off his character and backyard baseball. I always thought he was awesome. They still had Doc Gooden on that team. John Franco, they had him. He was 32. Nobody really else that was very noteworthy. It's kind of strange. This team, even at their best, they weren't that great. What happened that year? Let's see. Wow, in 93, they were horrible, and it makes sense. They were 59 and 103. So his best year, where he was an all-star with 34 jacks, they were absolutely terrible. Let's see, the 1995 Mets, close. They finished second in the NL East with a 69 and 75 record, but this was also the strike year where everything got cut short. So that's kind of a bummer. Can't blame him for any of that. Let's see. Let's go down. All right. So the Mets were certified garbage when they had Bobby Bonilla, which is really funny. And let's see the 1999 team. The 1995, remember, that was the year before they made it to the World Series. So they finished 97-66, second in the NL East. They beat the Diamondbacks in the NLDS, lost to the Atlanta Braves in the NLCS, and the Braves eventually lost to the Yankees. So let's see about this team. So you had Mike Piazza, John Olerud, Edgardo Alfonso. You had Ray Ordonez, Robbie Ventura, Ricky Henderson, Roger Cedeno. Bobby Bonilla was a utility man off the bench. See, this team was a lot more loaded and a team that was ready to compete. They had Melvin Mora, Al Leiter, Oral Hershiser was off the bench at 40 years old. They had Octavio Dotel. Octavio Dotel was a starter at the time. Everybody, my age kind of remembers him as a closer. Kenny Rogers, he was on the starting rotation. You had Armando Benitez, Pat Mahomes. Look at Pat Mahomes as a reliever. 8-0 as a reliever in 39 games. He had a 3.68 ERA, 51 Ks. Not bad for Mr. Mahomes. So, okay, we're going a little long with this one, but okay, I'll wrap this up. Steve Cohen, the fact that he wants to have a parade for Bobby Bonilla when the Mets were absolutely horrible during this time is so funny. And the fact, I think that right there and that mindset is great for culture. So even if you don't like the fact that they got sold to Steve Cohen is going to make the Mets a competing team again, and I can guarantee you that. All right, everybody, we went a little long. We're going to take my first break, and I will be right back to talk about some trades options for Lance Lynn.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alrighty, everybody, so let's talk about Lance Lynn. One thing that made Lance Lynn intriguing to me, at least, is because he has a very strange situation. And what I mean by that is, he has 1 year left on his deal. The Rangers were one of the worst teams in baseball this year, but they also are slightly on the buyer's market. They sold Mike Minor away, but they're in talks to re-sign Lance Lynn and go after James Paxton and JA Happ. So that doesn't make any sense to me why they would trade Mike Minor when he was doing pretty well for the Texas Rangers, and then just would decide, hey, we sold him for, not much. I don't remember what they got back, but it wasn't an intriguing haul at all whatsoever. And, now they're thinking about, hey, let's try and compete this year. It doesn't make any sense. So, and with the pitching market the way it is, it doesn't seem, it's just gone very strange. So you have, obviously, Marcus Stroman. He's back with the Mets. You got Kevin Gausman. He's back with the San Francisco Giants. Robbie Ray is back with the Toronto Blue Jays. Drew Smyly is with Atlanta. You got Trevor Bauer, obviously. He's the best pitcher on the board. He doesn't really... No one really knows where he's going to go. But then after him, there's Tanaka, Paxton, Odorizzi, Corey Kluber. Charlie Morton doesn't look like he wants to leave the Southeast at all whatsoever. So, I think the furthest west he'll probably end up going is Atlanta, but I don't even think he'll actually commit to going to Atlanta. I think that the only real place that he will go, if it is in Tampa Bay, is probably Miami. So, I don't know. I don't think he's really up out there. So it makes the market for Lance Lynn more intriguing, because if you need a solid go-to pitcher on the market and he isn't there, and you don't want to wait for a year, probably work out a sign-and trade, then that makes it more palatable, I guess, to get rid of Lance Lynn when he's pitched very well last season. He's pitched well the last couple seasons, but he's also not that expensive. He's not the sexiest name on the market. So if anybody gets Lance Lynn, no one's going to be parading in the streets, kind of like, you would if you got, when the Padres got Mike Clevenger, it was this, whoa, big, shocking thing. And, we never got that. We're not going to get that with Lance Lynn. If Lance Lynn just turns up somewhere, it's oh, cool, they got Lance Lynn, even though he's an outstanding pitcher. So it's kind of strange. I don't think that they are going to sign him long term. That doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. I think the best thing that's going to happen to him is a trade, but I also don't think they're going to get a ton back. The Rangers are in a very awkward position with Lance Lynn, because he's going to ask for a lot of money to stay with a team that isn't contending, but he's also not going to be worth very much on the trade market. It's kind of, I don't know. But yeah, they are allowed to mention his name now in trades. They have they flirted it a little bit on the trade deadline. So now that free agency is officially started and people are signing, it's let's see what Lance Lynn is going to go. There's about 6 or 7 teams that he makes sense with, but that doesn't mean that he's absolutely going to end up going there. The first team that is probably, I think that this team could make the biggest push for him, and I'll explain why right now. It's the San Diego Padres, and the reason why is because Mike Clevenger is out for the entire 2021 season. Lamet is also coming off his own arm problems. They're still coming off one of the most exciting offensive seasons we had seen with Slam Diego, and the fact that they were just ripping taters left and right, and were just, let's admit it, they were the most fun team to watch. Like, Atlanta was cool, yeah. Like, we had fun watching them. The Dodgers were fun to watch. There were some other teams around the league that made a lot of noise. As a good young team like the Chicago White Sox. The Twins offensively were very fun, as they normally are. But this year, the number one most exciting team to watch was hands down the San Diego Padres. And the fact that, Lamet is coming off his arm issue. They still got Chris Paddock, Zach Davies. They still need another arm to round out that rotation. And if you can work out a sign and trade, so when, Clevinger and Lamet can come back healthy, you got Lamet, Clevy, you got Lance Lynn, Zach Davies, and Chris Paddock is your starting five. That's a dangerous rotation, man. Along with that offense, I think that Lance Lynn could be the piece that really solidifies them as World Series threats. And I know that this year they were a World Series threat, even with, just getting Mike Clevinger and all that. But I think that really, really puts them in a position to where they could take down the Dodgers. If you can roll out that pitching rotation, that's honestly like one of the most dangerous rotations in the game. Another team also with an exciting young offense, the White Sox. So the White Sox, they have Lucas Giolito atop their rotation. They have a great number 2 in Dallas Keuchel behind them. But the one thing that is holding them back is there is a ton of uncertainty behind them. Nobody knows what they're going to get out of the rest of their rotation. Obviously, in today's age, you need at least 4 good starters. I mean, the Dodgers kind of, played with the sense that you don't need 4 good starters. But realistically, with Derek May and Tony Gonsolin, they had 4 good starters. It was just they handled them a little bit differently because they needed to stretch out their bullpen the way that they needed to. So, with that being said, the White Sox really need to make a big push this offseason. And I feel like Lance Lynn could be someone that really does it for them. They could, depending on their depth at third base or at second base, I feel like Nick Madrigal could be a good name to kind of, dangle out there. I know he had like an up and down year this year in his first season, but no, I feel like he's definitely somebody that, you can kind of you can get away with trading, I feel like, especially if you get somebody of the caliber of Lance Lynn, because I don't feel like Nick Madrigal is going to be the guy who is really helping that middle infield get to a World Series, especially if you have somebody else on the infield where you can move them to second and keep Moncada at third, or you can move Moncada back to second if you have a good third baseman coming up the ranks. So we'll see how they handle it, but I feel like Madrigal could be a good piece to give away if you were on the Chicago White Sox. Granted, White Sox fans, if I am wrong, tell me I'm wrong, because Nick Madrigal, I remember watching him in the College World Series and he was the man, but last year, obviously as a rookie, not all rookies are 100 miles per hour, 100 right out of the gates. So, if you guys see potential, let me know. I really don't see it. Next up is the team that is going after every single pitcher and also 0 pitchers. It is the Los Angeles Angels. So, as we know, they're trying to get Mike Trout in the playoffs, but they're doing it in all the wrong ways. I've talked about it 100,000 times on this podcast. It's something that they've needed to go after for a very long time, even to the days where they had Jared Washburn and, John Lackey were their guys. There was a lot of uncertainty in their starting rotation, and there has been uncertainty in their starting rotation, and I feel like there will never not be uncertainty in the starting rotation, especially when you're passing up on, big name starters, like throwing money at a Southern California kid, Garrett Cole, to say, hey, let's give all the money to a third baseman and we'll sign Julio Teheran. Boom. Solved, right? No, not solved. That's why they're in this position over and over again. they did get the new general manager, Perry Manajan. I don't know how to say his name. Everybody knows. I mean, if you've listened to the show by now, you know I'm pretty bad with names. But, being that he's coming from the Atlanta Braves, I know what kind of team, what kind of person he was under with, Alex Anthopoulos. They're going to go from within. They're going to sign some guys if they can, but they're also going to build their farm system and come up from within. And pitching is a very a number one priority for them. So with this new general manager, he's even come out and said that pitching is going to be a major priority. So I could see where the Angels could try and make a trade. I just don't think that they have the assets in the farm system to go out and make a trade with the Texas Rangers, especially when the Texas Rangers have said they're not trading within their division, which doesn't make sense because they've said they aren't trading within their division, but they also traded Mike Minor to the A's. I don't get that one. Next up, we have the Atlanta Braves. So the Atlanta Braves are in a weird position because they have all the talent in the world in the farm system to give up. It's pretty much pick your poison, but outside resources have not worked out very well for the Atlanta Braves in the past couple of years when it comes to their starting rotation. So, Dallas Keuchel was cool. He wasn't anything too great. Like, he pitched a lot better on the Chicago White Sox this year. Cole Hamels came in, pitched one game, got hurt, and then he opted out, opted in, and then got hurt and opted out again. Felix Hernandez looked like he was going to break that cycle, and then he opted out. They got Tommy Milone at the trade deadline last year. He pitched one game, got hurt, was done for the year. Starting rotation wise, it just didn't look great for us. It hasn't looked great in a while. When we got Shelby Miller, luckily we were able to flip him for Dansby Swanson, but Shelby Miller we got from the St. Louis Cardinals, and he looked really good on the Cardinals, but wasn't looking too great on the Atlanta Braves. Once again, luckily we were able to flip him for our shortstop. But yeah, there's been a history of free agent signings that have been very subpar for the Braves. I get this is a trade. We just got Drew Smyly, so maybe he'll stay healthy. There's a lot of question marks. Obviously, what's going to come of Mike Soroka? Can Ian Anderson replicate what he's done? Can Kyle Wright lower his ERA? There's a lot of question marks. We need somebody at the top of the rotation. I was really hoping it was going to be Marcus Stroman, but it is what it is. We'll see. I doubt he's going to go to the Atlanta Braves. I really do. Next up, we have the Toronto Blue Jays. So Toronto is definitely serious about contending. They need bigger, better names in the pitching rotation. They got Robbie Ray back. Hyun-Jin Ryu had a great year. And then they have Nate Pearson, but not really much else. They have as we know, their farm system is looking very nice. They have a few pieces. I think Lance Lynn is somebody who he isn't a big name. He isn't someone that, is the sexiest name on the market. So I feel like they could get away with being slick with a little trade and having it work out to the point where, they're really, really contending in the AL East next year, especially with the uncertainty of the pitching rotation in New York, to the fact where Luke Voit is getting dangled in some trade talks. Luke Voit is getting dangled in trade talks, your most consistent hitter last season, not named DJ LeMahieu. You could lose DJ LeMahieu and your number one power threat, and by number one power threat I mean he's not Aaron Judge, but he stays healthy. And if you compare a healthy Aaron Judge, a healthy Giancarlo Stanton, and a healthy Luke Voit, that's John B. A-Rod and Sheffield all over again. But it's just not, because two of the three can't stay healthy, and you're going to trade the one that can? That doesn't make any sense to me. But, with the inconsistent the pitching rotation is a little weird in New York. Boston is all over the place. We don't know where they're going to be. Like, the AL East is really up for grabs, and it looks like the Blue Jays are in the best position to go out and really go grab it away. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Rays look like they're settled. So, it looks like they're going to be settled on, the top of that list. But the number 2 spot is definitely up for grabs. And there's a couple other teams that I'll throw in here, like obviously the Yankees, but, they're still trying to figure out what they want to do. The A's might go back for them after getting Mike Minor. I don't know, but they said they're not going to trade inside the division. The Tampa Bay Rays, they could go out and make a trade if they can't get Charlie Morton back and he retires. So we'll see about that. And then the Cubs could also use another starter. They're losing John Lester, Tyler Chatwood, and Jose Quintana to free agency, or they may lose them. Sorry, they may lose them. They haven't lost them yet, but when they go to free agency, it always kind of scares me because other teams could come in and really solidify themselves as major contenders. So yeah, it really looks like this is the summer of Lance Lynn. And if you don't get Trevor Bauer, it looks like Lance Lynn is probably the second best name out on the market right now, as weird as that sounds. All right, everybody, I'm going to be taking my second break, and I will be right back to talk about 2 big third basemen in the NL and what is going to come of their off season. So I will be right back after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alrighty, so in another instance where the 2020 off season is going to be weird, Nolan Arenado's name is back on the trade market again. Because I remember last season he was getting his name floated around in some trades, and it didn't make any sense to me because Colorado was looking to trade Arenado, but is also talking about signing Trevor Story long term and keeping around Charlie Blackmon and, trying to build their team, but trading away their MVP candidate and arguably, next to Manny Machado, the best third baseman in baseball. I think he's the best. I can see why people would argue Manny Machado. The only reason why I choose Arenado over Machado is Machado has looked like he hasn't cared too often. And if you listen to my last episode, you guys know how much just caring about what you do means to, you can see it. You really can see when someone just doesn't care on the field. And you can see when someone cares a lot on the field. And I've never seen Nolan Arenado play the game of baseball like he didn't care, which is why I put him at number 1. He had a pretty weird 2020 season. His OPS plus was at 84 through 48 games this year. He's never been that bad. As we all know, 100 OPS plus is average. He was 16 points below average as a third baseman. But that was just... This year, I don't think, is a year that you can put anything against anybody or for anybody. It was just kind of crazy. So Nolan Arenado, he can opt out of his contract after next season, kind of like Lance Lynn can. If he doesn't opt out, then he'll be owed $164 million through the 2026 season. I can see why Colorado wants to trade him after that through 2026. 5 years, $164 million after this year is a very large contract, and being a small market team like the Colorado Rockies are, it makes sense that they would want to trade him. But I don't like it. I don't like the trade. I think that if the Rockies are ever going to want to compete again, they're going to need to keep Nolan Arenado. I get that, last year when they put his name out on the trade market after that big contract extension, his relationship with the front office got, pretty soured. The fact that they were willing to trade him inside the division is also a potential factor. I could see the main rumor is that the Dodgers are going after Nolan Arenado, which makes sense because, they have Justin Turner, who's aging, who is also a free agent. I think they should bring Justin Turner back. That's just me. I think he can make plays, but obviously if you're going to have to choose between Justin Turner and the number one option at third base in the game, sorry, Turner. I get that you're number one in pretty much all Dodger postseason statistics, but it's Nolan Arenado. So, sorry, bud. Maybe they can move him to second base, re-sign him, and, put Justin Turner at second and keep Nolan Arenado at third, especially with Kike Hernandez being gone and my displeasure for Gavin Lux. I could see that happening. I don't know. I just don't like the fact that they're going to trade Nolan Arenado, and really he's kind of been pigeonholed to the point where you can only really trade him to big market teams with a plush farm system and a need for a third baseman, which really does not work out for anybody. That really narrows it down to the Dodgers, of course. The Yankees, they could package a deal with Gio Urshela and, some more pieces for Nolan Arenado. The Mets, you can get Jeff McNeil, and package some other people around, trade for him. Big market team willing to spend. The Cubs, maybe, especially because I'm about to talk about Chris Bryant, but maybe package some minor leaguers and Chris Bryant. I don't know if it'll save them money necessarily. It definitely will a little bit. I don't know how much, but maybe do a deal with the Cubs, send Chris Bryant to Colorado. That could possibly work. Thinking of a team in the American League. I'm not really catching anyone else in the American League who has probably the ability and a need at third base, especially with a big market franchise. You guys are probably screaming into your headsets like, this team needs him, but I just can't think of one. It's definitely not going to be the Angels because they just signed Anthony Rendon. Let's check out the Central. It's not going to be the Indians because the Indians don't have any money and they have Jose Ramirez locked up in a decent contract. The Twins aren't going to do it. Let's lead us to the East. Yeah, so really just the teams that I named out in the National League are the only teams that are really capable of having a deal for Nolan Arenado, which is a major bummer. mainly because I like Arenado in Colorado. I'm not the type of person who thinks that Arenado is immediately going to suck the second he leaves Coors Field. I think that he's going to be great no matter what uniform he's in. It just give him a little bit of downtime. That's another thing that really annoys me is nobody allows any downtime with the trade. It's like, oh, he got traded. He has to immediately be awesome. It's like you guys don't understand that, your mentality is something, and that, your mentality is something that really helps you with the game, obviously. Everybody knows who's played baseball, who are played sports in general. Sports are very routine-based. On game day, you have your game day routine. On your off day, you have your off day routine. Everybody's in a routine always. Even personal life is routine-based. And when you get traded halfway to all the way across the country from where you were comfortable at, and you have no idea what you're doing in that area, your routine can get really thrown off because maybe your routine was, wake up in the morning. Like for a night game, you wake up in the morning, you walk to like some deli around the corner from where you live, or just some random spot, you grab whatever food you want, then you head to the ballpark and you do your things there. Like when you go to a whole different place, you don't know where anything's at. It's like, okay, well, where am I staying? Oh, okay, I'm going to stay in this hotel room for a couple days before I find an apartment, maybe if I want to, and now I have a game today, so let me maybe unpack my stuff and go. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but, there's different things that make it a little harder, so, Arenado, I truly feel like once he gets traded, if you give him 1 year to kind of adjust, I think he'll be fine no matter where he ends up going. And speaking of third baseman, Chris Bryant is actually also, like I said, on the trade block. And one team that is considering making a trade for him is the Washington Nationals. So the Washington Nationals, as we know, were the 2019 World Series champs. They had a ton of pitchers opt out. They had a ton of big-name players opt out of the season. So they had a pretty rough go of it this year. Chris Bryant has not wowed me. His stats were better than I expected. Like, the numbers connected to him were better than I expected because ever since I watched him in the 2016 season where he won MVP and they won the World Series, he's been on a downward slope just by watching him play the game. Like, when I watch him play, he just has not been as good as he was in 2016. In 2016, he looked like a world beater, going to be up there with Arenado and Manny Machado as one of the top third basemen in the game, and he still is. But, he had a really rough 2020 season. And he's due like $19 million in salary in 2021. He has big name value, but his like trade value could be down. I don't really know what's going to go for Chris Bryant because, like, just looking at his stats, so in 2016 at 24 years old, it was his second year in the bigs. He led the league with 121 runs. He had 39 homers, 102 RBIs. He had a 292 batting average, a 385 on base, a 554 slugging, a 939 OPS, and a 146 career high OPS plus, and that got him the most valuable player of the year after getting Rookie of the Year. And then ever since then, it's been a pretty steady decline. The next season, 29 homers, 73 RBIs. He had a 295 batting average. His OPS was a little higher. His slugging percentage was lower. His OPS plus was down just a handful of points. So nothing too crazy. He played almost the same amount of games, so he was still, I would say, normal Chris Bryant, but the run production just was not there. He scored 10 less runs, drove in 30 less runs, and then the next year he had an injury-plagued season, only playing 102 games with 13 homers, 52 RBIs, a 272 batting average, a 374 on-base percentage, a 460 slugging, and an 834 OPS with a 121 OPS plus, 21 points down from his season before. The 2019 season, he was back as an all-star, but still the run production just was not there. He had 153 hits, 35 doubles, 31 homers, 77 RBIs, 282 batting average, 382 on base percentage, a 521 slugging percentage, and a 903 OPS with a 132 OPS plus. Like I said, he was an all-star, but last year he was he had some injuries, but in 34 games he had only 27 hits, 4 homers, 11 RBIs, 40 strikeouts, a 206 batting average, a 293 on base, a 351 slugging, and a 73 OPS plus. So his numbers way down last season. Obviously that's not great, but it's not like, you're looking at it, it's like, okay, injury plague, COVID season, you can kind of write it off. But the fact that he's been pretty much written off in general, just because of I know there was a show called Numbers Never Lie, but I swear on my life numbers lie. There are some numbers that just lie. They do. They lie. It happens. In his MVP season, he had a 7.3 WAR. He had a 5.6 WAR the next year, 1.9, and a 3.7 last year as an All-Star. He's made a ton of money throughout his career. There's also these advanced stats that are really going against him. Let's see what his postseason numbers looked like. So let's see, 2017. Let's go after the 2016 playoffs, because he really exploded in the 2016 playoffs. In the NLDS, he batted 375. NLCS, he batted 304. In the World Series, he batted 269. He had 2 homers in the World Series, which were incredibly big. In 2017, against the Washington Nationals, in the NLDS, he only batted 200 with 2 RBIs. In the NLCS, against the Dodgers, he only batted 200 with 1 RBI. In 2018, again, the wild card game, he had 1 hit in 6 at-bats, the 167 batting average, not looking great. And then this year, in 2 games in the wild card, he went 0 for 8 with 2 strikeouts. Nothing too great coming for him. He's talented, but he's not very great in the postseason. Besides the 2016 MVP season, his run production is down. Now, could that be based off of, could that have just been based off of, where he is in the lineup? Because I remember him batting second behind Javi Baez, and just the way maybe the Cubs used him wrong. So, we could look at Chris Bryant as a really, is he really going to get a whole bunch back? He's 29. He's coming off a really rough season. But I think this is a person that Washington can get that'll actually work out for him in the long run, because it's going to be an upgrade at third base, because Washington third baseman this year hit 204. They had a 325 on base percentage and a 250 slugging percentage with 2 homers. Obviously the first year after Anthony Rendon left in this offseason. Carter Keyboom, whatever his name is, he struggled in his 33 games, and if Bryant comes to the Washington Nationals, they could move Carter to second base, which would really open everything up for him. And an infield with Ryan Zimmerman, Carter Keyboom, Kaboom, whatever the heck his name is, Trey Turner, and Chris Bryant. And if Chris Bryant's able to bat third or fourth, maybe put him ahead of Juan Soto, and make it so he can actually get some pitches that he could hit and just see what happens. I could see how that could work out for the Washington Nationals, and can kind of give a breath of fresh air to Chris Bryant, and have him maybe get a little bit of revitalization and some pep in his step to actually go out and play some pretty good baseball. I think the one thing that's going to be going against him, though, is the NL East has solidified itself as one of the best pitching divisions in baseball, especially with the way that the Braves are up and coming, the Miami Marlins are up and coming with their good young pitching. The Philadelphia Phillies are always looking out, going for good pitching. They have Jake Arrieta, Aaron Nola. They got some guys chilling in the bullpen that are pretty good. And then there's another team. What other team am I forgetting? Oh, the Mets. And of course, how did I forget the Mets with Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman? They're still going after more pitching to try and figure out, how they could solidify their back into their rotation. Edwin Diaz, Jeurys Familia, they got all these guys back there. So one of the best pitching divisions in baseball. Probably going against Chris Bryant, but if he's able to get a little bit of a breath of fresh air, starting new, and is able to go somewhere with probably very low expectations, I feel like he could be someone that could be dealt very low. They could buy low and kind of reap the benefits, especially surrounding him with Ryan Zimmerman, more consistent hitters like Ryan Zimmerman and Juan Soto. All right, everybody, that is going to be my final break, and I'll be right back to go over our free agent focus of the day, which is the left-hander JA Happ.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Alrighty, everybody, you know how we end the show. This is our free agent focus, and who we're focusing on right now is the left-hander from the Yankees, J.A. Happ. So, J.A. Happ is an interesting case. First of all, I did not realize he'd been in the league so long. Take a quick guess right now. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. How long do you think J.A. Happ has played baseball? In the major leagues, how long has he played? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 14 seasons. Yes, J.A. Happ has pitched Major League Baseball since 2007. I could not believe it. I knew he'd been in the league for a long time. I didn't know he was in the league for that long. And really, his averages aren't anything stellar, to the point where I don't think he's going to get a decent look. His overall is 162 game average for his 14-year career is 13 wins, 10 losses, a .572 win percentage, a 3.98 batting ERA. Let's see. He averages around 190 innings. Around 180 hits a year. Let's see, his ERA, where do they... Oh, they already listed his ERA. Yeah, it's a 4. Blase, blah, blase, blah, blase, blah. Let's see, his whip is a 1.301, 8 hits per 9 innings, 8 Ks per 9. So, nothing too crazy. His best season... he finished 6th in the Cy Young Award race in 2016. He was 20-4 with the Toronto Blue Jays. He had a 3.18 ERA. He pitched 195 innings. He had 163 strikeouts. He had 60 walks. His FIP was 3.96. He had a 1.16 whip. Let's see, 7.5 Ks per 9 innings. And he was not even an all-star. His all-star season happened to come 2 years later, his lone all-star year at age 35. This was the year that he got traded from the Toronto Blue Jays to the New York Yankees. He was 17-6 with a 3.65 ERA. He had 177.2 innings. Let's see, 193 strikeouts, 51 walks. Let's see, he had a 3.98 FIP, a 1.13 WHIP, and a 9.8 Ks per 9. That was his all-star season. The first half of the season in Toronto, he was 10-6, and then he finished the year out with the Yankees in 2018, 7-0. Absolutely unstoppable when he was in Yankee pinstripes that year, or that half of the year, I should say. But still, like, he's going to be 38 years old, entering his 15th year in the league. A couple of teams hunting for him. He's been there before, so the Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays are going after him pretty hard to kind of round out the back end of their rotation. He's also played for the Philadelphia Phillies, the Houston Astros, 1 year with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and 1 year with the Seattle Mariners. So, J.A. Happ, where would he fit in, and how does he fit in? So, the teams going after him are your usual suspects. You know, they've been going after pretty much everybody on the market, starting off with the Los Angeles Angels. So the Angels rotation right now is Griffin Canning, Dylan Bundy, and Andrew Heaney. Griffin Canning looks like he has some potential. Dylan Bundy was the surprise of the year. I did not think he was going to be as good as he was. He was very good this year, hoping just because the Angels have been so bad for so long that he can roll over and keep it going into next season. Andrew Heaney, I totally believe, is a lost cause. He has the flattest fastball in the game. His changeup does not drop enough and does not have enough speed differential. So he just gets teed off on like a home run machine. I do not really enjoy Andrew Heaney, watching him pitch at all. So even right now, even if they sign J.A. Happ, he could be the starter on opening day. Besides Dylan Bundy, I would say those are the only two that are really pushing for it. I don't think he would be a major help to the Angels rotation, that's for sure, but I don't know how much of a help that he would be starting off, especially with the rest of that. But hey, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and J.A. Happ could be a pretty decent single step. Another team that's vying for his services that is pretty low on pitching right now, the Chicago Cubs. Really, the only three pitchers that they have under contract are Alec Mills, Yu Darvish, and Kyle Hendricks. Infinitely better than the three that are in, Anaheim. Anaheim has not been very good. The Cubs still have a chance to be good. Theo Epstein just stepped down, so there's going through a bit of a change there, but they still have David Ross. Their pitching staff is still there. They still have their core that made it to the postseason this year that may have got bounced in the first round, but they still made it. They were still, leading the Central Division for the longest time. I think they won the Central Division this year, and so, adding J.A. Happ to that would be kind of a smooth transition, no real drop-offs, I would say, just another lefty in the lineup or in the rotation that can take over for I think they're pretty even with Tyler Chatwood, I would say, or a Jose Quintana. So another team, not named I'll get to the Blue Jays and Yankees last, but another team that I was just talking about earlier that is vying for his services is the Texas Rangers. Now, the Texas Rangers doesn't make any sense to me at all because they're going after J.A. Happ, but they're not keeping Lance Lynn, or they're dangling him out in trades. They have a pretty heavy rotation, by the way. The Rangers right now, their current starters under contract with the big league squad is Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson. You have Lyles, Wes Benjamin, Kyle Cody, and Colby Allard. So you got 6 starters already looking at J.A. Happ to sign, obviously, because Colby Allard's been a little shaky. Kyle Cody, sure. I mean, all these guys, he's pretty much better than all of them. He's up there with, I would say he's probably between Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. I would pick Lance or J.A. Happ over Gibson, but yeah. So The Rangers are vying for his services. I don't know why. Are you contending? Are you not? I feel like they don't know what they're doing, and if they don't know what they're doing, the players definitely don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and if that's going on, that's not a good situation to be in at all whatsoever. I don't expect JA Happ to sign with the Rangers at all. They're kind of confused. Let's see. So we'll start off between the Yankees and the Blue Jays. I want to start off with the Yankees because the Yankees, they have Cole, Montgomery, Garcia, King, Herman, and Severino. Severino cannot stay healthy at all whatsoever. I do not trust him to come into a season at all and be healthy, and then I cannot trust him to stay healthy throughout the year. I am not going to trust him until he can prove me otherwise. Domingo Germán. I do like Domingo Germán a lot. I think that him combined with Deivi Garcia is a great young 1-2 punch behind Cole. I don't know how much I trust Jordan Montgomery. He's good, but I would say I would put him as like my 5th starter. And then if you're able to put JA Happ back into that rotation, I feel like there's a pretty good starting 5. Like, I get it, Herman is young, but he really produced in 2019, I feel. Deivi Garcia showed that he is a lot like Marcus Stroman, which is amazing for the Yankee fans. So I would pick, out of that, I would go after JA Happ just to fill out the back end of the rotation, mainly because, like, just what he's done with the team for, the last 2 seasons before this year, before the COVID season. Because even last year, he was in a Yankee uniform. He is combined for, 21. He's a combined record of 21-10. Like a 21-10 record in 3 seasons with the Yankees. I don't know. I would take that. I would absolutely take that. And especially last year, he had a pretty rough 2019, but he still was 12-8. His ERA was pretty high, but I mean, it is what it is. He kind of bounced back this year. This year was 2-2 with a 3.47, so he still has a lot of gas in the tank that he's shown. So I don't know why, the Yankees would be hesitant on re-signing him. I think that he would be a good fit in that rotation. And lastly, we'll start with the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays have Ryu, Pearson, Roark, Ray, and Thornton. Adding JA Happ to that and just being able to teach Pearson along with Roark and Robbie Ray, I feel like that is a pretty dang good rotation. Not anything over the top, anything too stunning, but I feel like that's definitely something that could put them back in the driver's seat, especially if they were able to take JA Happ away from the Yankees and bring him back to Toronto, where he had a pretty decent career in Toronto. He was 59-41 with a 3.88 ERA. So, he's had a lot of success in Toronto. He had some of his better years in Toronto where he was, he started off his lone All-Star season in Toronto. He had 6th in the Cy Young Award where he was 20-4. He was 33 years old. That was 2016 while he was in Toronto. So if he comes back to Toronto, it'll be more comfortable. He can get back into his routine and he could produce immediately. All right, everybody, that is going to be our show. I will be back on Friday, I think. I don't know if they want us to put out an episode on Thanksgiving Day, but I'll be back soon. I'll just put it like that. You could follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. You could play me in Tap Baseball if you're bored. The nickname is EvanWorley23. And I would like to thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show because it really helps us out. Write a nice review if you can. Also, if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all, and have a great week, and enjoy your Thanksgiving.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.